So I see that some people are still joining us. Welcome, welcome. My name is Christina Arlt, as I mentioned, and I'll be facilitating this group today. We also have Hunter Withers with us. She's going to be the note taker for our group so that we can make sure that we capture all of your comments. So there's a few ground rules that I want to go over at the beginning. Why don't we start with introductions? We have about 13 people on, so I think we have time to go around the room. Councilman Carter, would you like to start with a quick introduction?
Sure. I'm councilman for the 6th district. Been in council for 3 years, but active on land use and planning in the county for well over 30 years. Tracking this quite closely. We will be voting on it. I think we have a lot of work to do here, so we'll see where we end up.
Thanks. Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Melissa Heller. I'm a resident in Middletown for the last 5 years in the Back Creek community. I've been a Delaware resident for close to 20 years, previously lived in Wilmington.
Great, thanks. Bill, would you like to introduce yourself?
Bill Dunn, I'm Vice President of a countywide civic organization called the Civic League for Newcastle County. It's been around since 1962. Been involved in, this is my 3rd, maybe 4th comp plan. Remained active in many county issues and most concerned about transportation and environmental issues that exist throughout the county.
Okay. Carlos, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, my name is Carlos Nuno. My wife and I, Lynn Ann, we have been residents of Back Creek since 1997. We are seriously trying to catch up on the countywide plan, and that's why we're here tonight.
Great, thanks. Let's see, Karen, Council President Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Hartley-Nagel. I'm the County Council President, and I'm here to listen to what the constituents in the county have to say about the comprehensive plan. So I want to do more listening than speaking. So thank you.
Thank you. Dominic, would you like to introduce yourself next?
My name's actually Mandy. Dominic's my husband.
Sorry.
That's fine. We moved to Fairview Farms, so not far from the Back Creek neighbors in North Middletown. And I am here, I guess, mostly to voice my concern with the proposed plans for Carter Farm, the development there.
Okay. The focus of this discussion is more countywide development, not any one specific development, but
understood.
Heather, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, I'm Heather Longard. I bought property here in Middletown in 1996 off of Charlie Carter. So I am pretty directly going to be affected by the plans for the Carter subdivision. I would like, my voice to be heard, because when I purchased my property over 20 years ago under the current plan, my property, you had to have a 2-acre lot to have a well. I purchased my property under that expectation that this is what my home, my environment, the place I was raising my children was going to stay. And while I understand and appreciate the need for growth and diversity, I think if you look at any of our communities, they are extremely diverse, and any of our schools are diverse. I don't have a problem particularly with the denser housing, but I do have a problem with, hearing, I appreciate this forum, but when I'm told that the sewer's coming in a year, it seems to me you guys are, people in the planning committee have already made decisions, and this is just an act. This is just something to pacify us while you continue to do your thing. And I'm not saying you, like, I'm not saying you, I'm just using that word.
All right, well, we just want to go through quick introductions, so we'll give you more chance to speak a little bit later on. But Jerome, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Good evening. Hi, Dave and Bill.
Hey,
See
Jerry.
you here. My name's Jerome Heisler. I'm with the Breakout Group. I'm a developer, one of those hated people. And I do a lot of different development from commercial to residential in the county. I've been involved in comprehensive plans before. I'm quite concerned about housing and the overreaching of this plan and its impact on allowing the economics to work or the free market to work, so to speak, rather than telling where, this should be an industrial area, this should be a residential area. I think planning's good, but the market's going to really determine what works, not a bunch of people sitting at Commons Boulevard.
Right.
Thank you.
Shayna, would you like to introduce yourself
I want
next?
to add one thing. Jerry is one of the developers who has done, in my view, a much better job of helping us achieve affordable housing. So his input is really important to me.
Great. Shayna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Shanna Williams. I purchased a home in Back Creek about 5.5 years ago with intentions of being a long-term resident in North Middletown. And this neighborhood was ideal for many reasons. So I'm definitely interested to learn about these plans and how they impact my decisions to stay as a long-term resident in Back Creek.
Great. Trisha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you. My name is Trisha Arndt. I am actually a planner with the Office of State Planning Coordination. So within that office, there are 3 principal planners, one for each county, and Newcastle County is my county. So I serve as a guide for the county through the planning process and the state approval process. My goal in attending here tonight is more to observe the process and hear some public input and see how the county is putting forth their public outreach efforts.
Great. And we have someone on the phone whose name I can't see. So if you're on the phone, would you mind unmuting and introducing yourself? You might have to press *6 in order to do that. I'm not hearing anything yet, so I'll move on. But if you're on the phone, feel free to jump in and join the conversation. All right, so we have 2 different activities that we are going to go through in the next about 45 minutes, and then we'll also have a few questions at the end as well. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So as you heard previously, there are certain areas of the county that have been identified as potential areas for change. They are the areas that you see in purple on this map here.
Nothing's showing on my screen. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, can anyone else see?
It's just black.
Oh, okay, hold on, I'll stop sharing.
Might need to select a different one.
Hang on. Oh, it seems like my screen is frozen. Let me. I'm gonna jump out and come back in. Hang on.
Okay.
All right, Hunter, if you can hear this, would you mind trying to see if you can share your screen? It's not letting me.
He has a web link in the chat. If you hit it, it shows some of the purple areas.
Okay, that sounds
I put
good.
the link in the chat. But
If
give me
you are,
1 second, I'll see if I can share some different screen. Yep, give me 1 second.
Is he able to share?
I'm
I'm
gonna.
on another laptop. It's sending me to the breakout room. 1 second.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me try again.
I could probably share this web page you put up if you want me to.
Are you able to see it now?
Nope,
Still
just
loading.
black screen.
Huh, I'm not sure what's happening.
If you shut down your sharing, I can try the,
More than one monitor?
go
I
ahead,
only,
shut down your sharing. Let me see if I could share my web page.
sure.
Okay. Is that coming up at all?
Yes. All right, great. Thank you
Yes.
so much. So as you can see, there are certain areas in purple that have been identified as potential areas for change. And we're going to have a brief discussion for about the next 5 or 10 minutes about these areas in purple. We want to try to focus on the areas that are purple, but not covered by the sort of beige areas, because those beige areas have community area master plans that have already had their own public process to go with it. So why don't we open up the discussion? Are there certain areas that people would like to discuss?
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you explain what you just said about the gray areas? What are they?
The gray areas here, so Newark and Wilmington and Middletown, those are the gray areas. The sort of beige areas, which are sort of the brownish colored areas, they are areas that have community area master plans that have either already, that are already in progress, or in the case of Churchman's Crossing, are also in the works right now. So those are areas that have had extensive planning done for them in the past, and that's why we want to try to focus on, for this discussion, the areas in purple that are not covered by beige.
Okay, and when will we talk about the areas in beige?
So the Churchman's Crossing plan, which is the area that's sort of hatched around that Churchman's Crossing train station, that plan is still in progress.
Specifically the, that Middletown area, Back Creek area.
Well, and let me, Christina, let me point out, even though they're saying there's a master plan, they have not ever gone through a public hearing or through the planning board. I can tell you, I'm going to be amending the ordinance to withdraw the Southern Newcastle County Master Plan from that as the council member. So I suggest you collect some information on it if you can. I understand Scott Run, it's been approved for commercial for a long time. Ford's Corner, Jason Netcha has a plan for that. What happens on that 113 corridor will be interesting. I know what's being planned. But the other purple area that's getting on the west side, keep in mind, is it's currently an airport and the school district and housing. So to tell me that's going to change is whoever put this together doesn't understand the context of what's happening in the ground. At the same time, we've just had 2 plans come in further west of that are major changes. And those were done. One of them was in a community development area where the Carter Farm's going, but the other one, the estates of Back Creek or whatever it is, was never updated in a comp plan. So we have things going on that are moving without a comp plan being approved. And we are making assumptions on master plans that have never gone through a public hearing, never been adopted. And, so I would just give you that warning. And my concern here is that The town of Townsend is very upset that they've been cut out. They just put out a posting to start their own police force. They're trying right now. They have it on the street to hire a police chief to get that going. And they are working towards signing a contract to begin to do a sewer study. And there are 6 farmers that are ready to be annexed in because they want to grow and have more development. And
All right. I just want to give everyone a chance to speak because we have a really limited amount of time tonight. So I want all of the members of the public especially.
I will be quiet because I'll have my chance on the council floor.
Yeah, but David,
But there are real problems here.
everything we're wanting you to say, so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, David. Yes.
All right. Does anyone else have any comments about the areas that they see in purple? So for example, would you like to see more development or less development in the areas shown in purple? And in particular, how would you like to see that change? Would you like to see more mixed residential? Would you like to see more town and village center? Or would you like to see more economic hubs with jobs?
So Harry Heisler here. I like to just highlight some things about them. When you look at the Route 896 and Glasgow areas, they're bought up already. Most of them have plans on them. Route 40 corridor, there's only a couple pieces left to be developed in it. The Wrangell Hill area is an interesting area. I know my office is down there. I know it pretty well, but the one problem is it's got wetlands around it. When you look at the Kirkwood Highway area, that's pretty developed. I mean, I'm not sure what people are really asking. If you're looking for, do you want to see master plans in the Hockessin area? That's a limestone recharge area. Bill knows that better than anyone. So I'm not sure what the real question is. You know, when just following up on Dave a minute, Dave and I both participated in the Blue Heron study. I go back to it plenty of times with him. But, you know, when I look at master planning, east of 1 or 13 below the canal ought to be protected and have super transfer development rates in it. And that's a major migratory path going on here. And I'm a developer and I want to see it protected. So I think what's missing here, I saw somebody mention critical natural areas. We really need to see the resource boundaries in these areas before we even talk about what needs to be developed, because I don't know how much is really left to be developed in these areas. What would really be interesting is how much is not planned in those purple areas, is not recorded, and then how much is left that is not resource protected. Some of those areas are just not developable. The Hockessin area, Bill, is it developable? I don't think that's developable, that purple area.
I think that's the Valley Road area, and there is some open space there up near the Hack, and
but it's impacted by the limestone.
Yeah, and some of it's really floodplain. So
right. In Greenville, you could never get anything through. Nobody would ever let you develop up there.
Yeah, Lancaster Pike and 141, that's Marley Mill. That's pretty well developed.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's no traffic capacity there. Panero just blew it out.
Right.
So when you look at these areas, I would like to see the constraints that allow development there, unless the county is going to change its TIS waiver process, which I don't think they're going to do.
Great. Does anyone else have any comments about the areas?
Yeah, Council President has a comment.
Go ahead.
You want us to put our hand up, or I don't see anything like for the hand up, the little yellow hand.
It's okay.
We're following Robert rules. Not like a council meeting.
No, but I wanted to be respectful of everybody. So I just want to make sure that I want to hear more what Mr. Heisler has to say. I know he does a really good job and is well respected, even as a developer, Mr. Heisler.
Thank you.
I want to make sure that the public is aware that when council's members, and we often say we're going to amend something, we put forth an amendment, but it needs 7 votes. So even though, you know, I might want to put forth an amendment, or Mr. Carter, that doesn't mean it'll pass. So there still can be changes. Other council members can further amendment through a floor amendment. So there can be other changes. So I just want to be clear with that so that, you know, people know what to expect and that they can still come to the meetings right up to the end and changes can still happen. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that.
You have two
Bill,
comments.
I see your hand raised.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can I just
it-
ask, I don't think anybody can hear me, and I put things in the chat. Back to Bill said, what was the ask in the beginning about this purple area? My question is, what is the ask? I mean, why does it have to be developed? That's one question. The second question I have is this land in Port Penn. I mean, I am an avid game hunter, and that is marsh over there. And I'm really would like to know the piece of land in Port Penn that these building rights are being transferred from.
All right, Bill, I see you had your hand up.
Well, but yeah, two quick things. The Pike Creek thing, that is essentially what was Pike Creek Golf Course, and it's been through the state Supreme Court twice. And I think there's very little development to go on in Pike Creek at this point, unless you take up part of the county park, which is protected, and that would be Carousel. The other main question I have is regarding the Churchman's Crossing overlay, or whatever they're calling it. On the northern border, as it was depicted and discussed by Dave, or land use guy, they had along Kirkwood Highway a big red line that ran across that top edge. Do you have any idea what that line represents at Kirkwood Highway?
I am not.
It was in the main presentation that was done earlier.
I'm not 100% sure which slide you're referring to. So,
Yeah.
but the slides will all be available online on the Newcastle County Land Use website on the Newcastle County Act 2050 plan page. So you.
Well, I don't think anybody's really impressed with what you're attempting to do, but if you review it again, we can pluck one of these things out and start talking about it if that's what you want to do. But I don't see it as very useful if we're talking about these specific areas that you've highlighted.
All right, thanks for that feedback. Melissa, it looked like you had indicated you wanted to speak in the chat.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, just as a input on some of the purple areas north of Wilmington, I used to live off of Governor Prince Boulevard. My comment on that area would be if you're looking for input, I would be hesitant to significantly develop that area. I don't think that it's the safest of areas. If you're trying to get residential, I think that families would avoid that area. That's certainly what I did. So I would be hesitant about that. The other area that I would say I'm very interested in seeing development is that South Market Street area. Again, when I lived in Wilmington, it was in Midtown Brandywine. We would walk down to the riverfront often. I love what Lower Market's doing, like the Loma area. I think there's some great potential there on the riverfront. So I would love to see that, kind of like in the image that I saw on the PowerPoint slides earlier, where there was like a combination of, nicer looking, higher density housing with the road, the parking, as well as a nice, tree lined path. I think that would be really interesting there. My other input, I really do hope we have time to talk about it because it is relating to the Back Creek area down in the Middleton area. It is brown, and I really hope we get a chance to talk about that because I have some significant concerns I'd like to express.
Great. Well, we do still have a whole other activity that they would like to go through. So we'll spend another minute or two on this survey, and then Hunter did post the link for this survey in the chat. If you have specific comments about different areas, you are welcome to go into the map-based survey and add pins, drop pins on the map, and then add, talk about what you would like to see where, and all of that feedback will be incorporated into the plan. So, and there is also the second survey that we'll be going through, and you have the opportunity to provide more feedback there as well. So.
Christina, the one concern I do have is that all of these scenarios seem to be modeled without having the human dimension considered and the social and cultural factors that are already on ground. You know, one of the things, the reason we talked about master plans was to recognize those different regional differences. And this seems to be broadly applied as a one size fits all, and I'm not sure if it captures that. So that's one important thing that I think applies across the board that we need to consider as we go through. The other one is, as I listen to them going through this and talking about jobs, I mean, I just spent 3 sessions. We're setting up a task force in the National Association of Counties looking at the massive changes we are going to see in unemployment and housing because of COVID, because so many more people are going to be remote working so much more, and the fact that many of them are going to want a house that's also going to have a big enough area for a office inside. That's going to affect transportation. That's going to affect a lot of other things, you know. So the old smart growth thing that we have been doing for higher densities and those type of things, I think is going to get shifted considerably. And I don't know if we're planning for 30 years out, we should at least be talking about the contemporary impacts that that is going to have. And I heard nothing about that. That's going to be really important because we're going to see it in the next couple of years and then have a plan that's going to be outdated and approved about the time that stuff is hitting home. And we really do need to get a handle on that. You know, so there are a couple of things that I'm really concerned about with some of this, not capturing that human dimension and the social realities or whatever out there, because, you know, these things are thrown out there, but they don't seem to have a good link to what's on the ground. You know, in these areas south of the canal that we're talking about making a growth zone, 50% of that is already developed on larger lots. So we're never going to get the transportation infrastructure. I don't know what's going to happen with the market for the economy. At the same time, I have a town that wants desperately to grow and is going to try and move in that direction, that we cut out and basically threaten them kind of because we have a sewer contract for 2 more years. They're going to hopefully, their hope is to have a sewer approved and in place in time to get out from underneath of that constraint. And the other thing is that, you know, we talk about big areas of protecting, and I agree with Jerry, it would be great if we could have TDRs, but we have never gone through the public process to identify those sending and receiving areas. I just put an ordinance in to try and fix that because that's what we're feeling right now. You do it, it's, you know, mother apple pie until you put it on the ground. And we just haven't done our due diligence. All of those are key factors that we really need to get in here and deal with and understand what's actually happening on the ground and exactly what Jerry talked about. What are those constraints? What's really developable in these areas? And quite frankly, what we know is out of play for development. We can look at the state strategy maps and other things and know many of these areas can never be developed. And we should have that. Otherwise, these maps just they don't seem to have a rational nexus to me to what's on the ground.
Christina, I don't think that this is going to be impactful unless you actually just look at the chat and see what people want to talk about here. If you want to stick to this agenda, we're never going to get to why people are actually here, and you're not going to get the data that you actually need. So can we just skip that next part and go on to what people are talking about in the chat?
I mean,
we're almost halfway through with this breakout, according to the woman who chimed in on the chat.
Yeah, we do have a section that's going to talk about different trade-offs. And so I do want to get to that.
Yeah, so I totally understand you have that section, but we have 30 minutes left. And there are so many people that are asking you to move on. So maybe we post that, or they go online and look at the other breakout rooms that follow your agenda. But in this room, maybe we need to go on and move on to what people want to hear.
Thank you, Shanna. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, what's in the, hold on a minute. What's the next question before we do that?
Well, we wanted to talk about the differences between the trade-offs between fee simple purchase of land or transfer of development rights through grants, taxes, and impact fees, and talk a little bit about, are people more in favor of preserving land? Are they more in favor of higher taxes? What do we want to spend the county's money on?
I'm actually more interested in that question because I'm trying to develop something and I have to put something on the record tonight, I was told by the planning department. So if you want me to just put it on the record, what I have to say, I'll do that now if they want to talk about other things specific, but I'm more interested in the comprehensive plan because I'm more concerned about affordable housing. Melissa brought up a really good point. On Route 9, she talked about areas not deserving of housing. I think that's more opportune for affordable housing for redevelopment. Because now we're getting into 50 and 75 and 80-year-old housing. It's got to come down. What are you going to put in its place? How are you going to design communities? We have a whole problem out there of how to revitalize Newcastle County. And part of the exercise here that people don't realize, that's what the discussion's about. How we're going to revitalize these older components in the development process that have been developed, and what are we going to make them look like? I mean, are they just going to look like Concord Pike with a bunch of cash places on them, or are they going to look really nice? And you can do affordable housing really nice. Do we build more mobile home parks? What do we build? And there's been no guidance on that. And I actually want to do a micro home community of using 3D printed or modular homes. The county has been pushing back a little bit, so I'm putting on the record tonight, we need to expedite things. We don't have a year and a half to wait. There's a tremendous housing problem out there. People, there's gentrification, there's just a lot of issues. And if we don't begin addressing them right now, Back Creek's really important, but I'm not sure this is a forum to address Back Creek as a problem. That's my concern. This plan that's being proposed is going to have some very significant issues if they are really to go in, and you're going to pre-plan where we can do commercial, residential, and other types of components, especially if you don't have the economic engine to develop it.
Well,
So I want to hear how you're going to develop it and make it happen.
Jerome, you're a builder, so you are involved and interested in the whole state. You're one person, you have connections, you can be in those meetings and you get invited to those backroom things. We are the ones who live in the communities that you guys are talking about, adding, multiple housing and adding all these residents and condominiums and, bringing a sewer in and changing our environment, our structure. Okay, that's what I want to talk about. And I think that's what the other 9 people from Back Creek community and Fairview want to talk about. That's what's important to us, because the way I see it, every day that nothing happens is 10 days that you guys fly by us on planning what you're going to build around us, and we have no say in it. So while
to say you have no say in it's incorrect. I've had enough projects with people protesting against them, and I've lost a couple.
listen,
that's not correct. And there's less builders today than there ever have been in the county.
Maybe I said it wrong. I guess my point is, I don't feel like my time should be spent discussing how the builders can add your tiny town and 3D print. I don't care about, I don't want even your tiny town, because if you're going to bring it to Middletown, that's more traffic, more education, more infrastructure. And our environment can't handle it, nor should we have to suffer with the changes. It's sort of like bait and switch, right? When you sell your development, let's say you built Back Creek, you sold it under the pretext of that plan that we're going to have this country, very rural environment around us with nicely spaced out houses that were thoughtfully designed. Now you're going to tell me, guess what? We want to change that, and because we need to just want to do it. We don't want to put apartments in the swamp of Port Penn now. We're going to put them in Middletown. That is one question I would like to know. And David, you brought it up, a map of wetlands, a map of where you can't build right now. And I specifically would like to know if the properties I would hope that they are, that the properties in Port Penn, that land that they're transferring those apartment rights over to Middletown, I'd like to know if that land is actually developable.
Let me give a little bit of context to this, because I think both of you are right. Where we're struggling is under the county code. We have suburban zoning, 16, 17 different choices under it, and we have all of these needs. And Jerry, I think you're right, but we need to upfront develop and figure out where we can place. I desperately know how much we need affordable housing, and I think we have to subsidize it. I think it's too much to ask.
Thank you.
For the private market to do it. But for me, it's not just that 30% going into your house, because when you come south of the canal, except for Middletown, like where you're, you built some developments, you've got the Highlands coming in, we don't have transportation. We've got a little bit on 299,
Right.
other infrastructure I'm building there for a library and for a lot of those things. But we do need around the county figure out where it makes sense and where it doesn't. And, my issue all along, and I've been fighting for about 2 years, is does it really make sense to do this out in the remote areas? I had problems with Whitehall being out middle of anywhere, and everybody talks about how the higher density and village concept is building affordable housing. But if you look at the demographic data, it is one of the most economically exclusive areas we have developed in Newcastle County. And Jerry, I know your project, you've done much better, but those ones that you have done have been cited much more thoughtfully with transportation and with other things. And so I think that's the link to Back Creek. So I've got to talk about both of them. I don't care about the order. I got to answer both of these. And that's the problem I've had with the plans across the board. We have been hesitant in Newcastle County to actually look hard at that zoning. Where should we have more ST zoning, suburban transition? Where should we have more of the open space, higher density? And, people forget that up until 2005, anything other than 0.67 houses per acre was not by right. When they removed 3.319, a lot of problems with that. There was that community character hearing, and we massively, massively upzoned all suburban land. And now we wonder why we're in this problem with the spread out development. We do have to downzone some areas, but we have to get thoughtful about it. And that I just don't see that in those blue spotches yet.
I see that Bill has his hand raised, so.
I want to jump in real quick and just say to Heather that I'm here to listen. I want to hear what my constituents, I represent the whole county, and I want to know what you have to say and what you want, and I do fight for you out there. So please do express it. And we can, as I said, things can be changed or tweaked right up to the end. So don't think you don't have a voice or you don't have the power. You do. So, please, even if you don't get out what you want to say tonight, you can contact me or other council members and let us know. And for me, I want to hear. So reach out to me.
I appreciate that, Karen. Can I ask you if you would be willing to come with David to speak to our group at Back Creek? And we could invite the Fairview community groups and the Fox Hunter, because I think a lot of awareness, and that's something that I think Christina and Karen, the state needs to do a better job at making this information available to people. I'm putting it out on every social media venue I had when I received this invite from David's office. But the thing is, this is if I hadn't put this out on, I received about 12 thank yous for sharing this information, and I don't have a big Facebook page. What are your plans to educate our community about the plans that are being proposed?
Yeah, Heather, definitely reach out. If you call my office phone, it's forwarded to my cell phone. I pick up, so you can definitely reach me, and I'd love to.
What is your number, Karen?
It's 302. I'm going to give you my cell, 302-344-7828.
I appreciate that very much. Go ahead, Bill.
The one thing I took exception with is Jerry was speaking about going to older communities and clearing them out and building new. I live in the area of Stanton, right next to Marshallton. All the development in that area occurred in the 40s and 50s. I live in a 66-year-old house. The community's probably as nice, if not nicer, than it was when it was built. There are many communities that are longstanding. The area I grew up in, Heritage Park and Lower Pike Creek and Sherwood Park and all that area. Nobody should be coming in and trying to change the character of those communities. And quite frequently, that's the biggest problem. People want to do infill development and denser populations and build townhouses in areas where you've got nothing but single family homes, and small time developers can capitalize. I will admit that there are communities in Newcastle County that's, they're probably ready to be plowed under, but they're few and far between. Most of them are traditional communities in homes that were built to last 150 years. My house is as strong as not strong as it was the day it was built. Community character is most important. The problem lies on the broad level in Newcastle County is us meeting the transportation needs of existing residents as well as future development. Up until this TID stuff started rolling out a couple of years ago and council rolling things back on developers' commitments to do road expansion when necessary is just ridiculous. The roads won't come till 15 years after the damn communities are all built out, and we all sit in gridlock until then. It's terrible. So
No,
I
I just put it,
empathize with the developer interest, but
I just did an Avon improvement of $2 million. There are plenty of developers making improvements to roadways to conform to level of service. And I do it all the time. So and the other thing is not every community needs to be plowed under. I wasn't saying that. We need redevelopment. There are mobile home parks that are falling apart. You know that.
I absolutely know that.
Yeah, there are plenty of communities that are not well kept, that are just declining, and we need, if we're not going to invest the money into them as a community or county, we need to rebuild them somehow, or we need to find other ways to house people. If you're not going to be able to use green areas, and I don't think we're going to be able to continue using green areas, we need to find ways to redevelop through infill and other areas. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to have a vibrant economy. And that's critical to jobs, to the health of our people, the health of our businesses, and our schools. We need to have that. And it's really short-sighted. The more obstacles you put up, the less developers you have here, which you have less now. And there's not a lot of small developers to do stuff. And we're just going to find ourselves being strangled. And no development at all. And that's not good.
Melissa has her hand raised.
Thank you. So I have a comment as it pertains to long-term development, specifically Middletown, but it goes for the Newcastle County as well. I support the reasonable development of land for more families. We moved here to Middletown 5 years ago for good schools, more space, and a suburban environment for my kids to grow up in. That's what we were looking for. And did you know that the only 2 photos on the front page of the middletown.delaware.gov website are a playground and an aerial view of the town showing many trees, single-family homes, and cast against the background of undeveloped land looking west? Those are the only 2 pictures right there. The development plans that I see in play, and in some cases already approved without a lot of chance to comment, especially on the west side of Route 71, are completely opposed to the image our town is striving for, and that's consistent with what the county wants. It's urban density with suburban roads. Higher density residential housing, it's not appropriate in all places. That mixed residential, it's not appropriate in all places. And the current laws don't let the community decide where to put higher density residential, because meetings like this show me that the decision's already made when developers are putting in plans and there's no forum for neighbors. We're hearing that this isn't the right forum to speak. So the code, and I'm speaking to my representatives now, right? The code that enables this transferring of density between parcels, that is not appropriate. It's creating an environment that's detriment to the public good. And rather than developing parks and community gardens, we're seeing developers optimizing for short-term profit, as they should. And as in a business, we are a capitalist economy, so that is fine. But they're doing it with putting as much housing as they can get in. And we, as I think it was Heather said earlier, right? We are the ones left holding back. We are the ones who are living here. So this is my comment, my call from my representatives, Council President Karen Hartley-Nagel, please revamp the code with a more long-term view of what the image is and the experiences that we're trying to have in this county and in the Middletown area specifically.
Melissa, I like to address, you brought up some really good points, and I like to address a couple of them because they've just been changed. If you look at my communities, the 2 I built, Meridian Crossing and St. Andrews, they both have a lot of playgrounds, open space, pools, clubhouse. I'll never do it anymore. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. The county's passing the codes that make me put that infrastructure up front, which I did anyway, but I won't do it now because it's too handicapping. And the net result is I'll never put another playground in a big community again, but I don't know that I'll build a big community. because it's just too complicated, too expensive. So why do developers put so much in a community in the way of density? By the way, we don't have that high a density in Delaware, in Newcastle County, compared to some other areas.
Which is
But
why
the
I
reason,
moved here,
yeah.
as opposed to
So,
where I'm from, Maryland. Yeah.
but one of the reasons we pack it in there is it's so expensive to get the plans through. When I started doing plans years ago, they were 10 or 15, 20 pages, way too short. Now they're hundreds of pages. And they cost, a standard plan set for a normal subdivision that's fairly large is $1 million to $2 million. You don't borrow that from a bank. You have to have equity. So you're only getting big boys to play or big girls to play. And then that result is nobody's getting what they want. The county has these really difficult regulations, which are now encouraging me not to put in any infrastructure that benefits the residents there, because I have to have it done before 50% is completed in the subdivision. So what's happened since '08, I have to front load all my electric costs. I have to front load a lot of off-site improvements for what Bill was talking about for road improvements. I have to front load this and that. So the net result is so much money's up front, there's no money for fringe around the subdivision. Now I'm going to be doing a big subdivision in Middletown called the Highlands. It's going to have a clubhouse and a pool and everything else. But I can put that in as I go along, not up front. But you'll never see big subdivisions again that have a lot of human infrastructure, soft infrastructure, because now they're changing the open space laws that actually discourage you putting in any of that stuff. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's
maybe we can agree on the fact that the code should be revamped, maybe, right?
They revamped it to do it that way. They just revamped it to do it that way.
They've been punching holes in the code for 20 years now.
Pardon?
Well, the UDC is a problem. Suburban zoning is a hot mess. The fact that neither a developer or a community can know what's coming in next to them. I mean, we need to do better job of proper zoning of where different densities can be supported, can support it well, and then ease back on all of the other hoops that drop through once you get that sorted out up front. And I agree with Jerry. It's not fair. I would estimate that probably 30 to 34% of the cost of a development is for the permitting process. I don't know how far off that is.
No, not that much. Not that much.
Listen, but that process is what's supposed to keep us communities and neighbors safe and make sure that what we invested in is protected. That permit process. I'm sorry, it's expensive and time consuming for you to put a development in my neighborhood. But if the process is going to make sure that you're not violating the rights of me, you're not destroying the culture of my community, you're not destroying my view, and you're keeping it in line with the way that it has been and that we've been living. So I'm sorry.
So Heather, and I agree with you, but the difference is that some of that the county needs to take responsibility and do up front.
Correct.
So
Now
that
let me
you
also
have that
add, Dave,
predictability.
if I want to put in a outbuilding on my property, I have to notify my neighbors.
Sure.
Right. But
Yeah.
there's a development going in behind me that nobody told me about.
I mean, they'll have public hearings.
Let's charge the group with fixing that one piece of communication. How do I, when I sit on the same major tax parcel number, how do I not know that a sewer is coming past my house? How do I know that my well isn't going to be in jeopardy because a sewer isn't going to leak or something?
And Heather, I am fighting that
That
because
is going to cross over the air. It's not even underground. Do you know how many kids are going to climb on that going from this development to that one? The clubhouses. I mean, you guys are, there's so many little things about this that are so little, but so significant to our lifestyles.
Yeah, there's going to be a stormwater management area right behind my house. But is that going to be totally fenced in? My pets, my kids, do I have to worry about that from pest control? Do I have, these are things that are presented new that I had no chance to review a previous comment on.
and there has been no public hearing on it. They had a few meetings in Middletown, and look, They signed the agreement guaranteeing sewer within a year through a confidential legal settlement. And the council president will tell you when they were having a council meeting in executive session, I recused myself because I would not get muzzled by sitting in executive session. And they went ahead and did it anyway. And they did it before they had approved and modified a plan. And, you know, the planning process is supposed to have public involvement. We're sitting here tonight being told not to talk about the Brown area because there's master planning underway, but it's never gone through a public hearing.
But
It's
who's
never
in
had
charge of
public
the
notice.
planning? Who is in charge of the planning process? Like Dave, who is?
It's Rick Hall, who Matt Meyer is the executive branch. He was brought in from Maryland by Matt. So, you know, it's an executive process. So, you know, for some of that, I would, you know, talk to County Executive Matt Meyer and see what you could do, because I can tell you I've been fighting with for 2 years. You know, and you know, I think this is very healthy to have this conversation. And Heather, I'm happy to send you the 20 pages of comments that I sent on that master plan.
I already have them. You
So I think you have every right to be upset. I mean, I know this process inside and out, and they sure as heck didn't listen to me. And all I was trying to do was capture the comments that I was hearing from my residents, because they would not listen to you. Well, not you, but to many of them that were showing up at the meetings.
Speaking of listening to everyone, there's a few people that we haven't heard from. So Carlos, I know you have been very quiet today. Carlos, do you want to have the floor? We're, you know, a few minutes away from the end, and I haven't heard from you yet, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to.
Oh no, you can have as much as you want from me. No, I was here to talk about the beige areas. And so, you know, he's right. When we're told that we can't talk about the beige area, that's why we're here, because we're concerned about what's happening down in Middletown. We're concerned that it was done without any notification, and it was just done basically under the cover of darkness in back rooms, like you would imagine, you know, some politicians do and developers. So you know, it's disheartening to know that I sat here for 2 hours and nothing that concerns us is going to be discussed on this, because it's already been handled and is already underway. So, you know, that's my 2 cents, but it is disappointing.
All right, Mandy.
Hi. So just put it all out there. I completely agree with pretty much everything Melissa and Heather have said. But just to kind of look at it from the other side, if we're talking about having lower income housing in Middletown, and we're talking about where people would actually be working, and the fact that we don't have any mass transit, even buses, in this general area, you're going to have a lot of people presumably working in the the southwestern quadrant of Middletown, I guess, by Walmart, by Amazon, by where all of the commercial development is. And there's really no good way of getting them down there. Forget my wants and needs as a resident of Fairview Farms. Forget any of my neighbors, forget Back Creek, forget what, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to have almost 2,000 homes, townhomes, apartments in this area just south of the canal, where people have no way to get to the jobs that they're realistically doing. There's also no way for them to get to Bear if that's where they work. There's no way, like, it just doesn't make sense. Why don't we put a development like this closer to where they're actually going to be working, closer to where the jobs are? That would benefit everyone, instead of just developing for the sake of developing, which it seems like that's kind of like, oh, there's a farm. Let's just cram as much as we can here without any regard for anything really in depth. So that's
well, Since we didn't do the second activity that we were hoping to do, I'm going to go ahead and post the link to that survey in the chat. I would highly encourage you after this meeting is over to go through, and there's a series of questions about trade-offs. And so we've heard throughout this public involvement process that people were interested in more preservation. So a lot of the things that you've mentioned, preserving the views, preserving the farms, and so on. But that does come with trade-offs. So, you know, if there's more farms that are preserved, then people might have to live a little bit closer together in order to fit the people who are coming to Newcastle County into, you know, the community. So there's a series of trade-offs, and we encourage you to go through the survey and sort of select what's more important to you. Is more preservation important to you, or are lower taxes more important to you? Is what's more important to you, walking and biking or easier driving? These are trade-offs. If we want to make investments in walking and biking, that might mean that we have to slow traffic down so that it's safer for everyone. So please make sure that you go click on that survey link and complete the survey so that we can have your input, and feel free to share. There's also, the survey is also going to come out in the follow-up email, so you can feel free to forward that email with the survey to your friends and neighbors and get them to give their input too.
Christina,
Mhm.
you made a comment and you said that so that we have the space to accommodate the people, I might not be quoting it correctly, space to accommodate the people who want to come to Newcastle County. Why do we, I mean, do we saturate something till the sponge is soaked? Or isn't it okay to say there's no room left here in Newcastle County until somebody sells their current house? Like, I'm a little taken back by that. Like, is that the goal? Fit as many people into Newcastle County as possible?
No, there is natural population increase. Obviously, you know, people, they start families, and so there's a certain amount of natural population increase. But actually, Newcastle County's growth is slowing, and it will also eventually, the growth is not quite as rapid as it was in the past. So I see we have about 1 minute before we have to go back for the wrap up. So thank you all very much for participating. I encourage you to fill out the 2 surveys, both the mapping survey and the other survey. And we really appreciated hearing your feedback. And the draft plan will be coming out soon so that you can have a chance to comment on that.